I fell in the kitchen one March morning. No blood, no broken bones, just a slight slip on the tile floor as I reached for a glass on the top shelf. My knee hit the edge of the table. It hurt, sure, but no worse than any of the other times. I've birthed 3 children, driven across state lines alone in the dead of night, battled thyroid cancer. A little fall wasn't going to take me down, but apparently it was enough for someone else to make a decision for me. My daughter, Melissa, was the first to show up at the hospital. Her face was full of concern, but her eyes, they were calculating. 2 days later, I was discharged into a car I didn't choose, headed to a place I never agreed to. A suburban nursing home with white walls and that sterile smell mixed with something that tried to be cookies. "It's just temporary, Mom," Melissa said, voice syrupy sweet. "We're just worried about you. You live alone, and what if something happens?" I wanted to ask, what about the past 20 years? All the winter nights I lit the furnace myself, all the times I changed my own light bulbs, fixed leaking pipes, kept up the garden. But I stayed silent. Not because I didn't have words, but because I knew no one really wanted to hear them. They had already decided. I was just a side program in their busy lives now. In the first few days at the new place, I told myself to be strong. I wrote in my journal. I practiced walking the hallways. I smiled at the nurses. But everything here felt too clean, too fake. People smiled with their mouths, not their eyes. And I realized the most painful part wasn't being locked behind 4 walls. It was the intentional indifference from the people I loved most. I called Melissa on Saturday night. "Do you remember our family dinners on Sundays? When you kids were little?" "Yeah, Mom, I remember," she said quickly. "But now the kids have classes, and we're just so busy. You understand, right?" I smiled softly. "I understand." But I didn't. All I knew was, from one small fall, I had lost an entire world. I started to realize that my things weren't disappearing because I was forgetful. They were disappearing because someone was rearranging my life, without asking me. It started with a phone call. Melissa, speaking fast as always. "Hey, Mom, we're clearing out the house. Some of your old stuff. We've gotten rid of it to make space. Don't worry, I kept the important things for you." Kept for me? I swallowed my questions, said thank you, and hung up. But the next morning, when the nurse brought in a bag of clothes I had asked for from home, I understood. The ash-gray wool sweater I always wore in winter, gone. The hand-embroidered shawl my mother left me, gone too. In their place were strangers' things. A sporty jacket with a logo I'd never worn. A faded fabric wallet I had tossed aside years ago. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. A deliberate one. I texted Melissa to ask about the missing items. She replied with a single line. If it was worth keeping, I kept it. The rest was too old. "Mom, you don't use them anymore." Is it that I don't use them? Or that they don't want me to keep them? A week later, I stumbled across a post online from my granddaughter, Natalie. She was live streaming the grandma's house clean-out with a cheerful caption. "Found treasure. Who loves vintage? My grandma had a whole stash." I watched her hold up the old silver-edged frame that had held my wedding photo for nearly 40 years. A minute later, she tapped playfully on my old piano and said, "Anyone want a used piano? Still plays a few notes." I don't know when I started crying. At this nursing home, people cry all the time. But the pain inside me didn't feel like the quiet grief of old age. This wasn't the sorrow of growing older. This was the grief of being alive, and still being erased. I sat alone in the back courtyard of the facility. The scent of dying chrysanthemums hung in the air. The wind brushed through my silver hair in waves. Inside my coat pocket, I gripped the last thing I had left, a crumpled sheet of paper. A handwritten meal plan for the family dinner I had been preparing before they put me in here. The paper was worn, but the ink was still legible. Proof that I once had a role in my own family. Proof that I once mattered. I had never feared silence the way I did in this nursing home. Back at home, I knew every sound. The steady ticking of the old clock on my husband's altar, the wind threading through the shutters, the cat scratching at the door at midnight. Here, every sound was foreign. None of them belonged to me. I began writing down the strange things. A small notebook, hidden carefully beneath the tablecloth. I wrote in it like a diary. Which days Melissa didn't call, which days the staff watched me too closely when I used my phone, and especially the day I noticed certain clothes missing from my wardrobe. The navy blue cashmere coat I loved, a gift from my husband on our 40th anniversary, was gone. No one said a word. They assumed old people couldn't remember details. They were wrong. I called home, but no one answered. Melissa was always busy. My calls usually ended with her promise, "I'll stop by tomorrow." Her tomorrow stretched on endlessly. A week later, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a silver hairpin inlaid with pearls, the one I had given to Melissa to keep safe when I entered the facility, and a small note, 3 handwritten words, "Check your records." My heart pounded so hard I had to sit down. I knew that handwriting, neat, slightly tilted, the kind of script you get from one summer of calligraphy before giving it up. Not the staff, not my friends. Only one person knew Melissa had that pin. Emma, my granddaughter, the quiet one, the watcher. That was when I started taking my suspicions seriously. I asked Rita, a young nurse who had just started working there, to secretly help me use the facility's iPad. I remembered my old email password and that I had once linked my bank account to that email. I opened the inbox. The one Melissa didn't know about, the one that used to automatically save my monthly statements. The past 6 months, nothing. The statements had stopped. The account had been unlinked. I logged into the bank portal. It asked for verification. I submitted a recovery request and waited, my chest tight. That night, long after lights out, the phone in my room rang, an extremely rare occurrence. I picked up, my hand trembling. "Is this Mrs. Doris Whitmore?" A polite male voice. "Yes, this is she. Who's calling?" "I'm the account manager for your retirement account at First Horizon Bank. There's been a series of unusual transfers from your pension fund to an account under the name Melissa Ray Whitmore." I gripped the receiver tightly. "How much?" $450,000, ma'am. Split across 3 transactions over the last 5 months. The room spun. I couldn't speak for several seconds. All I could hear was the ticking wall clock and the thundering beat of my own heart. "Would you like us to report the activity, ma'am?" I closed my eyes. "No. Not yet." I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat still for nearly an hour. I thought about those dinners with wine, the designer bag Melissa had shown off on Instagram, the mental health retreat she claimed she had to put on credit, while I pinched every penny, saving for Emma's future. Turns out she didn't take out a loan. She was living lavishly, on the blood I'd saved my whole life. All the unanswered questions from part 1 and 2 clicked into place. The reason I was temporarily sent to a facility after a minor fall. The reason no one let me return home. The reason the house deed no longer carried my name. Melissa had planned this all along. I thought I was on a short break for recovery. In reality, I was under house arrest, disguised in the language of care. And now, I know what I have to do. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I brewed myself a cup of ginger tea and sipped it slowly, as if I were still at home. A small ritual to keep my mind sharp. I needed clarity, because today I would begin reclaiming my life. I called my late husband's old lawyer, Henry Aldridge, a man as old as I am, long retired but still willing to offer advice to old friends. I used the frailest voice I could muster. "I think my daughter is doing something behind my back. Do you remember Melissa?" He didn't answer right away. After a long pause, he said quietly, "Doris, I'm afraid I know more than you think." That sentence sent a chill down my spine. Henry told me that about 8 months ago, Melissa had brought him a power of attorney, signed with my name, giving her full legal and medical authority over me. He had found it strange, especially since I had once told him I never wanted anyone touching my assets until I passed. But the signature looked just like mine, and Melissa had cried. She said I wasn't lucid anymore, that I'd confused medications, that I'd spoken to people who had long been dead. I clenched my hands so tight my knuckles went white. "Do you still have that document?" I asked. "I do," he said. "But Doris, you need to prepare yourself. If you want to regain control of your assets, you'll have to prove mental competence. It might take time." "I have time," I said. We scheduled a meeting for the following week, the first step toward unraveling everything Melissa had put in motion. That afternoon, Melissa visited, the first time in 3 weeks. She wore a white linen dress, cream flats, and had a pair of Chanel sunglasses perched on her head, as if she were just stopping by on her way back from a spa. She held a bouquet of yellow tulips, which she knew I was allergic to. "Hi, Mom," she said, kissing me lightly on the cheek, as if we were polite acquaintances instead of mother and daughter. "Haven't seen you in a while," I said evenly. "Well, you're doing fine," she smiled, pouring herself tea from a pot that had barely cooled. "They take good care of you here. It's a relief for me, honestly." "Oh yes, very good. So good I feel like a decorative item, like a flower vase in someone else's home, clean, tucked away, and forgotten." She raised an eyebrow and tilted her head slightly, like she was listening to some strange music. "There you go again," she sighed, always making everything dramatic. "I called a few times. You didn't answer. I've been busy. Work, the house, Emma's after-school program, my therapy too. You know I've been trying to recover after putting me in here?" I smiled. Melissa went quiet for a second, then she laughed. "Mom, you're insulting yourself. You're here because you needed care. I did what I did out of love and concern. I looked at her longer than necessary, and because you needed the house and access to the money." She stood, her face changing color. "What are you talking about?" "The retirement account, the withdrawals, the power of attorney. I know everything now." She didn't speak. She just stared at me. No anger, no shock, just calculation. "You don't understand what's at stake," she whispered. "If you try to fight this, everything will explode. Emma will find out. My friends will find out. And you won't win anything but a mess." "Then don't let it go that far," I said softly. She leaned down, eyes blazing, and for the first time, I saw her without the gentle mask she'd worn since childhood. "You think you can win? No one's going to believe a 70-something woman who just fell down the stairs, who used to be on memory meds. You think they'll let you rejoin society, live independently, over a hairpin and a few scribbled notes?" I looked straight at her, and slowly said, "No, I don't think I'll win. I know I will." We sat in silence as the wind moved through the room. Outside, a nurse's cart clinked down the hallway. "You'll see," Melissa murmured, her voice cold. "I've built a whole world for you. Clean, warm, supervised. You don't have to think, don't have to worry." I smiled. Yes, a beautiful cage, and now I'm finding my way out of it. Melissa left without taking the bouquet. I threw the tulips in the trash the moment she turned the corner. Tomorrow I will call Emma. It's time to start with the only one who still believes in me. I called Emma on Monday morning. Her voice was still as clear as those summer days long ago, when she'd sit on my lap, learning how to knit, and ask, "Grandma, do grown-ups always know what's right?" Back then, I told her, "No, sweetheart. Grown-ups are just better at hiding what's wrong." Now that she was 14, I could hear something new in her tone. A cautiousness, like she was always checking whether someone was standing next to her mom before she could speak freely. "Grandma, why are you calling me? Mom said you weren't allowed to use a phone." "I borrowed one. It's not as bad here as your mom makes it sound. Just a little lonely." I paused just long enough, then added a soft hint of wounded guilt. Just enough for a growing girl to feel the tug. "Do you ever miss me?" "Yeah," she whispered. "But Mom said, she said you didn't want visitors anymore." I closed my eyes, steadying myself. "And on my birthday, did you send anything?" "I made a card. It had a cat wearing a crown. But Mom said you were sleeping all day, so she never gave it to you." I couldn't even force a smile. "Emma, are you free sometime? I need to talk to you. Just us." She was quiet, then exhaled slowly. "Thursday afternoon, after music class. I can stop by. Don't tell your mom," I warned. "Just say you're going to a friend's. Bring cookies if you want. A good cover." Emma gave a tiny laugh. "You're still the same, always thinking of a way to sneak around people." "It's not sneaking. It's reclaiming what's right, after someone else tried to bury it." Thursday came with rain. Emma wore a denim jacket and a hoodie pulled low over her face, slipping into the nursing home like a teenage spy. I had 2 cups of hot cocoa waiting in the empty common room. We sat by the window. The rain tapped gently against the glass like a lullaby. "You've gotten chubby," I teased. She glared, but smiled, those dimples still exactly where I remembered. "I'm growing up, not chubby." "Fine, growing. Just don't grow so much you forget your head." I told her everything. About the empty house, the missing keepsakes, the hairpin, the bank accounts drained. I used simple words, no venom, no blame, just a grandmother telling the truth to the only person left she still trusted. Emma said nothing for a while. But when I mentioned the forged power of attorney, her eyes widened. Mom forged your signature? I didn't sign anything, but I trusted your mom so much I never thought I'd need copies of anything. She looked down. There was one time I saw her practicing your signature. You have this weird way of writing G, but I thought she was just joking. You're not to blame. I didn't know anything, she murmured. Every time I asked about you, she'd get upset. Dad never said a word. I started thinking maybe you'd done something really bad. I reached across and held her hand. When adults don't let you ask questions, it's usually because they're the ones hiding something. We sat in silence. Then Emma asked, her voice hesitant, almost like she surprised herself by saying it, "What do you want me to do?" I never meant for Emma to carry any burden, but I needed evidence, and Melissa was too careful around adults. Emma was the only unlocked door her mother never thought to bolt. I said, "Next time you're home, take a look at the filing boxes your mom keeps. In her office, bottom drawer. Don't take anything. Just take pictures and send them to me. Don't open anything else, just photos." Emma nodded. "And you have to promise, if your mom gets angry, really angry, you stop. Your safety comes first." She looked at me, eyes glassy but calm, stronger than her mother ever gave her credit for. "Grandma, yes, dear? Was Mom ever like me? I mean, did she ever believe in you?" I smiled, took her hand, had pressed it to my cheek. "She did. But don't make her mistake. Don't let fear lead you your whole life." That night, I received a message from Emma. A string of photos. Power of attorney, bank withdrawal statements, property appraisal documents, and one short message. "You were right. She's getting ready to sell the house." I sat in the dark, hand resting over my heart where it still beat. Slow, steady, full of fire. Melissa hadn't meant to keep anything. Not her mother. Not the house. Not even her daughter out of the swamp of lies. But I would keep something. I would keep Emma. I would keep what's left of my life. Not for me, but for the truth. I woke up early the next morning, carefully slipping the photos Emma had sent me into a plain white envelope, as if I were carrying a still beating heart. The sky was still hazy when I met with Lynn, a petite Vietnamese woman I once mentored through law school 2 decades ago. Now she had her own practice, 2 brilliant kids, and something my own daughter never gave me: unwavering respect. "I'll help you with everything," Lynn said, her voice as sharp and certain as Taylor Shear's. "But you have to be ready. What Melissa's done could count as asset fraud and legal forgery. If you want to go through with this, we'll need to open a formal case." I nodded. "I've already hit rock bottom. The only way now is up." Lynn gave a thin, firm smile. "Good, but first we have to get you out of that nursing home. The fact that Melissa placed you there is already suspicious. You're mentally sound and physically capable. I'll file for a reassessment of your ability to live independently. If you pass, you'll legally regain the right to choose where you live." "Good. I can pass it." I didn't mention the time I helped her mother recover from a stroke, or how I once drove her through a snowstorm to take the bar exam, hands shaking with age and cold. I didn't need to. Ling remembered. And now she was repaying that debt by helping me reclaim my dignity. The following week, I was scheduled for a capacity hearing. A doctor, a social worker, a care coordinator from the facility. I wore the deep violet dress I used to wear to church, my hair pinned neatly, my voice calm and clear. I told them about my medication schedule, each dose, each hour. About booking paratransit buses, making medical appointments, ordering groceries online, and using a smartphone. I said, "I don't need to be locked up like broken furniture. I need to live where I choose. And I want to go home. A home I didn't even know was being sold out from under me." They took notes. The social worker stared at me a long moment, then nodded silently. 3 days later, I was granted full autonomy. Melissa didn't know. I didn't call, didn't send a message. I simply showed up, on the front porch of my own house, on a Saturday morning, just as she was giving a showing to potential buyers. I'll never forget her face. Hair unbrushed, wearing a sheer white blouse, holding the listing sheet in one hand. Melissa walked to the door and saw me standing there, suitcase in hand, among the wilted garden beds, like a ghost returned from something far too real. "Good morning," I said softly. "I think you forgot to invite me home." Her face drained of color, melting like wax in the sun. You can't be here. This property is under contract." Whose property? I asked, pulling a certified document from my coat pocket. The name on the deed you wouldn't let me keep a copy of? You're confused, she stammered, her voice cracking. You're disrupting a legal transaction. I turned to the young couple standing in awkward silence behind her. I'm sorry, I said. This house was never properly listed by its rightful owner. Some of the documents may be under investigation. If I were you, I'd look elsewhere before you're taken advantage of. They left. Melissa's face turned a furious shade of violet. You're destroying yourself. I laughed, low and dry. No, I'm reclaiming myself. And you, Melissa, you're finally being seen for who you are. Within 3 days, with Lynn's help, we froze all pending property transactions in my name. A copy of the forged documents, along with Emma's photo evidence, was submitted to the police. I knew I was putting Emma in a difficult position, but the girl had said it herself. You shouldn't have to fight this alone. And now, I wasn't alone anymore. After the truth began unraveling, Melissa disappeared for a few days, probably trying her old trick, retreat and clean up the mess from behind the scenes. But this time, every door was locked. Her friends started asking why a daughter would do this to her own mother. Some even called me, offering apologies, support, disbelief. Even her husband, my son-in-law, finally called. I didn't know. I thought you were just depressed. I don't blame you, I said. But now you do know, so what will you do with that truth? He didn't answer, but a few days later, he brought Emma to visit me. Melissa wasn't with them. Emma hugged me tight the moment she saw me. Mom lost it when she found out I helped you, she whispered. But I'm not scared anymore. I held her close, listening to the fierce, steady beat of her heart, a rhythm of truth, of bravery. Liars are all afraid of one thing, I whispered. What is it, Grandma? Light, and people who don't give up. I don't know how many times I've had to remind myself, I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this so I can be called by my name again. The last time I was in court was 30 years ago, as a witness in an insurance dispute. I wore a gray suit, scribbled every question by hand, even brought a homemade muffin for the judge. This time was different. I sat in the witness chair, silent. No notes, no smiles. All the paperwork was handled by Lynn, sharp, precise, not a word wasted. Melissa, my daughter born of pain, sat across from me. Her face was made up, her dress expensive, but her eyes empty. She never looked at me. Not once. When the forged document was presented in court, I watched her chin tremble. When the judge asked her why a mentally sound mother, no diagnosis, no request, was institutionalized, Melissa replied, My mother, she is skilled at hiding. She cannot live independently. And that's why you sold the house? Lynn asked, with measured condescension. There was no reassessment, no hearing, no authorities informed. Melissa looked around, searching for an escape. There was none. The judge didn't rule that day. Legal processes take time. But as I left the courtroom, I knew. Truth was shifting the balance in my favor. The surprise came afterward in the hallway. A woman in her 40s stood waiting. Are you Mrs. Loreen? She asked quietly. Yes. I'm Cassandra. Melissa's ex-husband is my brother. I froze. My brother? The one she married and divorced in a flash. Back then, we didn't know why. She vanished for months after the divorce. Now, looking through those old papers, I realize. She choked on her words. She did. Exactly what I suspected she might be doing to you. We sat in a cafe across the street. Cassandra showed me files on her phone, transaction records, suspicious transfers from accounts belonging to Melissa's former in-laws. She learned manipulation early. Cassandra said, I knew it, and I'm sorry I didn't warn you sooner. I took her hand. It's not your fault. The only one at fault is Melissa. Suddenly, like dominoes, every piece fell into place. A neighbor came forward, saying she'd seen Melissa sign papers in my name while I was locked up. A bank employee reached out, apologizing quietly for approving mortgage documents without proper verification. An old friend I'd lost contact with, blocked by Melissa, visited me with a hidden mailbox she'd found under the stairs. Inside was my mail, stolen, torn, refolded. I wasn't insane. I'd been deliberately erased from my own life. I decided to host a small gathering, not to celebrate victory, but to reconnect the bonds Melissa severed. With Emma's help, I sent invitations. I cooked beef soup, apple pie, brewed mint tea like I used to, and I sat in the living room, in the very house Melissa tried to sell, welcoming the people who had been cut off. When her husband, my son-in-law, walked in with Emma by his side, my voice caught. "I want to apologize," he said, "for letting your mother be isolated so long, for not listening to Emma sooner." I looked at him, wordless, then held him in my arms. "No one wins when divided," I whispered. "Only the divider thinks they have." Our gathering had no wine, no blaring music, only warmth that reached deep bones. I shared a little about my journey, not for praise, but so people knew I was still here. At the end, an old friend squeezed my hand. "You didn't just survive," she said. "You did what so many women fear. You stood up without apologizing for being a burden." I smiled. "I don't apologize anymore. I just ask to live in truth." November. The air is crisp, the sunlight pale, and fallen leaves scatter across the yard. I stand on the porch wrapped in a thick cardigan, a cup of tea warming my hands, watching Emma pedal her bike around the backyard. Her cheeks are rosy from the wind, hair tied loosely, sweater stretched at the shoulders. She laughs as she nearly tips over, then turns to me and calls out, "Grandma, look at me!" I wave back, heart unexpectedly warm. 7 months ago, I didn't think I'd ever hear a child call me grandma so freely again. Didn't think I'd ever stand in this house. Not as a guest, not as someone lovingly placed elsewhere, but as the rightful keeper of memories of this life. 7 months. The court case is over. Melissa lost guardianship, permanently. She didn't appeal. She didn't apologize. There was nothing left for her to hold on to. Her husband, the one I thought would always take her side, filed for divorce. He moved nearby with Emma. We raise the child together now. No one controls. No one claims ownership. I no longer hate Melissa. Truth is, I pity her. A woman raised among warped mirrors, false values, rewarded lies, is bound to become someone who survives only by controlling others. I don't forgive her actions, but I refuse to let anger consume what remains of my life. That's why I haven't shut the door. I've simply stopped holding it open. I started writing again. Fragments of journals, little stories, unsent letters, all handwritten in blue ink like when I was young. I joined a book club at the community center. Met a few new friends. One of them, Judith, 72, purple hair, leather jackets, told me, "I like you. You don't pretend to be sweet to be accepted. You let people learn how to respect you." I laughed the whole night. Every Sunday now, my house is full of laughter. Emma chases the cat I just adopted. Neighbors drop by with muffins. Old friends call again. They read the news about the case. One said, "If I ever see you, I just want to give you the biggest hug." I don't need hugs. I just want them to know I'm still here. Not as someone's fading story, but as someone living. Tonight, after Emma fell asleep, I sat at my old desk and wrote this line. I once believed life after 70 meant slowly fading into shadows. But if you stand tall long enough, if you refuse to stay silent, you don't need someone else's light. You become your own. Then I opened my laptop and edited the third video on the YouTube channel Judith and I started. The Grandmas Who Won't Stay Quiet. We tell stories not for pity, but so that anyone who's ever been silenced knows. You are not alone. If you're still reading or listening, maybe you understand. Sometimes what we need isn't a miracle, just someone to look at us and say, "I believe you, and you deserve to live as a whole, dignified human being." I once dreamt I'd die in some forgotten nursing home, my belongings sold off, my name erased, but now I know I will never again be a ghost in my own life. I am Lorene Patterson, I am a mother, I am a grandmother, I am a survivor. And I have returned.